To revolting women, smashers, a rebel cabaret. First person I want to introduce you to is Siobhan.
A voice spoke to me in the language of silence. My body answered, and I was undone. Return to the land of your belonging, Bridget said. Dig up the bones of the forgotten. Follow the old dreaming paths. The truth has been trapped in a sarcophagus of soil and silence. But there is a new story, more beautiful than anything you could ever imagine. And the time has come for it to be heard. And I would like to invite you now to welcome our second guest tonight, second performer, Annie Lanzalotto.
This is for the women who. This is for the women who lost their voices, kept silences, swallowed tears. This is for the women who have hoarse voices, born hoarse, or for the elders who told me, I got a frog in my throat. This is for the one elder who I answered, that ain't no frog, you gotta talk about it. This is for the unnamed, that disappeared. This is for the women who no one will ever know what happened to. Raise your glasses. This is for the women who sewed silence into every stitch, knit, loop, pearl. This is for the women who couldn't speak, never spoke, who did speak, but got us beaten for speaking. This is for the women who were slain, feminicidio. This is for the women who fought back, struck back, threw everything out of windows. This is for the smashes. This is for Sean O'Casey's characters, who took the bullet, hid the grenades, stuck by each other in the civilian aftermath. And for the women who they were based on, I'm going to invoke Johnny Moran's grandmother. Tell us her name.
Elizabeth Moran.
Tell us where she lived.
In Fenian Street.
To Elizabeth Moran, who took the bullet, and who Bessie, the mother of Juno, is based on. This is to the women who killed their abusers. This is to all the women whose lives were paved with pain. And for the stones along those roads, the stones pulled out of earth like teeth by hands hot as shovels, burnished into steel in the molten earth. This is for the sun, stepping each rung of their spines. This is for the women who lift me when I fall, who point the way when I wander, and for the one who said, hey baby, stay a while. And this is for the women who never spoke, never, not to themselves, not to each other, not to their sisters, not to their friends, not to any god or beads or stick of faith, not even to themselves. I hear you. I hear you. I hear all you left unsaid. And now the amazing Cullen.
Annie Lanzolotto is a hard act to follow. So I'm invoking Hannah She Skeffington, and I'm going to do a rap that was inspired by a plaque in Dublin Castle to commemorate Hannah and her smashing the windows there in a protest for votes for women in 1912 with some other women friends of hers too. And she was actually jailed for several months for this act of defiance. The plaque in question has, in English it says Hannah smashed these windows, but in Irish, and anybody who's Irish here, it says Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop, who made smithereens of these windows. And I just thought that phrase, Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop, kind of stuck in my head. I thought it was, a rap was there already, and it sort of sounded a little bit like a train. It was a very slow train. So here it is, Smithereeni rap. The surface tension shatters when you rock it with a whack, like up in Dublin Castle when they hammered up a plaque, and the city gave its benison to Hannah She Skeffington, Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop, Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop. The smasher at the castle never gave in to fatigue, from the Women Workers' Union to the Women's Franchise League. Remember the resistors. It was Hannah and her sisters, Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop, Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop. For the swift emancipation of the women of the nation and the self-determination of the country that she loved. We'll sing it toast to Skeffington. Sorry, I mixed that one up. Though jailed for being a menace in the city, he's to Skeffington, Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop, Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop. More revolting, more appealing, me fader dull or rash. Chip away that crystal ceiling, one more window we can smash. By subverting, not submission, we'll honour the tradition. Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop, Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop, Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop, Arina Smithereeni dana Fuinio Bishop. Thank you. Thank you. And now we have Yvonne, who's going to invoke a local woman.
An unsung hero, a rebel street trader, a hard-working mother, a small inner-city farmer, was born in 1885, just 5 years after Sean O'Casey himself was born, and they both lived on Dorset Street. I'm going to tell you her story now in song, The Rebel Street Trader. Mary McCarthy lived off Dorset Street. She started to work at just 8 years old. In the fruit market on a large stall, working long days in the heat and the cold. At the end of each long day, standing and napping, Mary went home, hungry and tired. Straight to her ma gave her 6 pennies pay. Her mother delighted that Mary was hired. All through her childhood she knew John McCarthy, lad with no learning, could not get a job. Only 13, said he was older, joined the British Army to earn a few bob. Sent to South Africa to fight in the Boer War, was injured en route and lost his right leg. Only 15 and crippled for life, John spent long years in pain and in strife. Mary, she wed John at just 17, by 22 had birthed 3 kids. status supplied the barracks. From then on she prospered, she was her own boss. The harder she worked, the more money she made. She answered to no one, not even her husband. She had 9 more children, only 5 survived. As they grew older, they helped with the business, shelling the peas to sell the next day, minding the bun of the chickens and eggs, each of her children their own role to play. Mary McCarthy became a true rebel, outwitting the towns, smuggled guns in her cart. Some of her sons became young Fina men. She knew Countess Markovich, Adams gone and Despard. Things started to go wrong in 1922, when in the forecourts men started a feud. Women formed groups to try stop the fighting. The men wouldn't listen. Civil war ensued. On June 28th at 4 in the morning, guns opened fire and all hell broke loose. But behind the forecourts lay the fruit market. For over a month the market was closed. Food they lay rotten, rank and forgotten. Mary's stock useless, her business was lost. Now age 37, she set up a street stall. Investing her savings, she suffered the cost. Mary continued to work hard all day long. From 6 in the morn, worked her fingers to the bone. She built up a good trade and sold fruit and veg, gave all her leftovers to the children's home. Just 4 years later, a street trading act, permits and license, outrageous by those. But Mary, she fought these for years after that. Refusing to move, she got fined and locked up. She fought for all street traders here and worldwide, part of the market where women were strong. She fought for their rights to earn a good living, be independent and free. They played leading roles. She fought for all street traders here and worldwide, one part of the market where women were strong. She fought for their right to earn a good living, independent and free. They played leading roles. Mary died on March the 10th, 1971 at 86 years old. Perhaps she is now looking down on us all, sitting in a comfortable armchair, her favoured glass of sherry or a raw egg and a glass of port in her hand, remembering the good times and all the support in court from the many other women street traders and their children as they cheered her on from the balcony, and remembering all the laughs, the time she wrapped a large cod around a policeman's neck, sick of their harassment, the bullying, the crap. Sadly, street trading is practically non-existent in Mary's community today. But Mary McCarthy is no longer an unsung hero.
So I'm going to read a little piece for you tonight. tonight that I wrote, and it was inspired by a piece written by Sean O'Casey, which is not so well known. It's called Drums Under the Window. And that piece of writing he recounts the immediate aftermath of an artillery clash in the 1916 Rising, where all the bodies of the civilians who were hit are just lying there in quiet after everybody has kind of gone home. It's a really, really sad piece. So to give you a little bit of the context, I'm going to read a tiny extract of that first, and then I'll go into my piece that I wrote. So just this is the Sean O'Casey piece, just to be clear. There they are, lying so quiet, a child surprised in the doorway, an old man stretched in the street, a young man near a lamppost which he had clutched when the bullet struck him, and down which he had slid when he died, his curiously white face containing wide eyes staring upwards, as if asking the sky why this had happened. A stiff arm still half encircling the lamp standard. A young lassie in holiday attire, lying on her face, maybe hurrying home when she heard the uproar, but going too slow. For on the brilliant white blouse, a purple patch of death was spreading over the middle of her back. So that's a little extract from Drums Under the Window by Sean O'Casey. And I heard this for many years just in my family and different places. And I always was struck by that young woman who was lying there in her lovely white blouse. So this was an opportunity to give her a voice. So I'll just read that now. This is called A Woman Lies Down in No Man's Land, and I'd like to dedicate it to all the men, women and children, civilians in Palestine. And so I lie, an innocent passer-by, spread out on the street, taken by surprise. The way you might fall in love, or a shooting star that I saw just that once. And my good blouse is made of white Indian cotton, and it shines out like a flag screaming, I surrender. The Irish linen underskirts, the Burmese silk skirt on top. There's Cypriot tortoiseshell combs in my hair. The plunder and the toils of all the slaves of all the other colonies fall with me hard onto the ground. My mind rushes blind to the place where my body will now not arrive, and it reaches the memory of his quiet room, the dark Asian mahogany desk, the willow patterned porcelain bowl, a Spanish orange he had cut into quarters for me. His hero's hands held all the promise of all the corners of the empire for me. But I lie here with the others, all of us like we have fallen out of the sky. We hesitated, we looked back, and now we're captured forever between empire and nation. A decrepit and withering empire still screaming for his soup, and a maiden nation who won't even look at us. Still naked, she turns her face away, all modesty and shame. But let that silence rule for now, and let the survivors emerge from the rubble and stagger their way towards their virgin state, bleary, their eyes unable to adjust to the light that her purity shines, while all the while our lifeless eyes stare right back at it. Shh, it's quiet now. Oh, it's dead quiet now. And poor Ishtar, the Easter goddess, she's all broody and expectant, and she waits. waiting on a promise of a Garden of Eden that some sweet-talking revolutionary long since flown has already broken, and left her to choose. Abort this battle, or bear her daughters into this no man's land, illegitimate, landless, free. My blood now spreads right across my best blouse, a vivid purple patch of death. Not laced with the blush of heroism, it dries to dark brown. No red-hot rage of revolution spills from my veins. No utopian ideals are flowing. Just a dark blemish of me, mortally exposed. I have left a stain on your clean sheets before you even got a chance to lie on them. Casual lovers or casual victims. Our indecent stains will hang around long after they've taken away the bodies, like brazen offers of love, embarrassing everyone. Thanks. And now I would like to invite the Countess Markovich and Kathleen Clark to the stage.
I take it as a great compliment that so many of you, the rising young women of Ireland, who are distinguishing yourselves every day and coming more and more to the front, should give me this opportunity. We older people look to you with great hope and great confidence that in your rising emancipation you are bringing great ideals, fresh energies, and above all, a great genius for sacrifice into the life of the nation.
What is there to be afraid of? Sure, won't you go straight to heaven if I die for Ireland?
That's the spirit. And remember, if you want to walk around Ireland or any other country, dress suitably, in short skirts and strong boots. Leave your jewels and gold wands in the bank, and buy a revolver. 12 o'clock Monday on Easter week, the day we started our divine adventure.
Easter Monday was a day of brilliant sunshine, and this we hoped was a good omen. I knew the rising would not go ahead till the afternoon, and while waiting to hear the first shot, I worked unceasingly in the garden. Tom and I loved working in our garden on Richmond Avenue. It comforted me to be there.
It is very unpleasant work killing slugs and snails, but let us not be daunted. A good nationalist looks upon killing slugs in the garden in much the same way as she looks upon the English in Ireland.
It was a hot day and I was very tired, but I could not stop working. I planted 100 cauliflowers.
Mr. Pierce would make you laugh. He was getting around the GPO like one in a dream, getting in the way of those trying to get things done in order. And Mr. Clark said,
For God's sake, will someone get that man an office and a desk with paper and pens and set him down to write?
there he sat writing most of the week. He even brought out a paper called The War News.
A neighbour who worked in the post office called to me.
Mrs. Clark, I overheard a private message that an airship is being sent over tonight to drop incendiary bombs on the GPO.
Miss McMahon, take a message back with you to the GPO. The GPO was darkened that night. On Tuesday, the lovely weather continued and I went into the garden to continue my planting. I filled a watering can and I had just laid it down when I heard a hiss, which gave me a shock. I examined the watering can and found 2 bullet holes in it, one on each side. Where they came from, I have never been able to find out.
I have always hated war and am by nature and philosophy a pacifist. But it is the English who are forcing war on us, and the first principle of war is to kill the enemy.
That night I watched from the upper windows of the house the smoke and flames of what seemed to be the whole city on fire. The picture of my husband and brother caught in it was vividly before me, though death in that dreadful fire might have been more merciful than the treatment I saw meted out to them in Kilmainham jail while awaiting death there.
Well, Ireland was free for a week. Our heart's desire was granted to us, and we counted ourselves lucky.
I received leave to correspondence.
Mrs. C.J. Clark, Richmond Avenue, Fairview. Dear Madam, I have to inform you that your husband is a prisoner here and wishes to see you. I am sending a motor car to bring you here to Kilmainham Jail.
When I arrived, it presented a scene of doom and decay. It had been abandoned as a prison for many years. A damp smell pervaded the place, and the only light was candles in jam jars. I was taken up a stone staircase and along a narrow passage with doors on each side. The soldier inserted a big key in the lock and the door opened. There was Tom lying on the floor. He jumped up when he saw me. Why did you surrender? The last thing you said was no surrender.
I know, Cathy, I know, and I meant it. Had it rested with me, there would have been no surrender. Perhaps it is better, so anyhow, I am getting a soldier's death. I am to be shot at dawn.
During the whole interview, my mind was concentrated on not breaking down. Yet I did not miss a word he said. It is burned into my brain. It never fades and never will. Our time together seemed so short when the soldier said,
Time up.
I had to stand there at the cell door of what seemed to me to be my husband's tomb.
You needn't tell me, I knew. It's Connolly. My death sentence commuted to life imprisonment by some fuzzy little officer with his teeth hanging out to dry. Why don't they let me die with my friends? I do wish your lot had the decency to shoot me.
How I held myself together with my head up, I do not know. The sound of that key in that lock has haunted me ever since.
My dearest darling, at last our extraordinary captors have given us leave to write. I saw myself for the first time for over 3 months the other day. It's quite amusing to meet yourself as a stranger. We bowed and grinned, and I thought my teeth very dirty and very much wanting a dentist. And I got very thin and very sunburned. In 6 months' time, I shall hardly recognise myself at all, my memory for faces being so bad. Anyhow, the life here is colourless, the beds are hard, the food's peculiar, but you might say that of many a free person's life.
Holloway jail depressed me. It was so gaunt and gloomy. The matron asked did I want food brought in from the outside, as Madame did, but I refused to take any of their concessions. The people who sent me here are responsible for my well-being and for everything I need to keep me alive and in good health.
My new fur coat is beautiful, so snug and warm, and the bottled jellies were lovely and the grapes charming. I've hung 3 branches up on the bars of our cage and the sun shines through them. I believe the English are trying to goad us into another rebellion so as to murder a large number of intelligent and brave patriots. Everything that is done points that way. But I hope the country is too well in hand for anything like that to occur.
I was marched to a cell in the top story and locked in. I wonder if there is anything in this world more horrible than being locked up. The sound of the key in the lock brought Kilmainham jail back. I could not get used to the sound. I sat down on the bed and asked myself, how in God's name did my husband live through nearly 16 years of prison of the worst kind? And I, just being interned, was feeling so dreadful.
It's very hot in here. Poor Mrs. Clark is in here now. She'll never stand this. She frets for her boy so, and is not at all recovered from her husband and brother's murder. She nearly died and has been very feeble since.
In the early days of our imprisonment, when we were out for exercise, Madame Markovich and Madame Maud Gon walked up and down the exercise yard together, discussing their mutual friends and acquaintances, and disputing as to which of them had the highest social status. When Madame Markovich did talk to me, I sensed a certain amount of patronage in her tone and manner, and that I was not prepared to take from anybody. Again and again she said to me,
Why on earth did they arrest such a quiet, insignificant person as you are?
The only information I can give you is what is on my charge sheet, which is exactly the same as yours. If you want some more information on the matter, you can send your query to the British government.
No, there's no need for that, Kathleen.
You seem to forget that when important people like you are in prison, somebody has to carry on, even insignificant nobodies like myself.
Kathleen Clark is such a dear, so patient and unselfish. Her only thought is not to give me any trouble, as if any little thing I could do for her is trouble. She has a wonderful spirit, and we joke away. She never complains. She makes the best of everything. Now, don't worry about me. I'm painting a lot, and I'm actually using this jail as a rest cure.
Madame would come into my room smoking, painting, and chatting. Knowing I was very particular about order in my cell, she would be very careful for a while. Then she would begin to get careless, throwing her cigarette ashes around and flicking paint and water off her brush. If you continue creating disorder in my cell, Madame, you will have to stay out.
I promise I'll be more careful.
Out!
I'm sorry, Kathleen. I promise I'll clean up and I'll not forget again.
No, out you go. Your untidiness distracts me.
May I come in, Kathleen?
No, I've had enough of you.
Kathleen, please may I come in?
No, you may not.
Why ever not?
You are too disorderly.
But Kathleen, I promise I won't be. I'll bring a plate for my cigarette ash and a jar to flick my paintbrushes into, and I won't throw my stubs on the floor.
No, I don't want you. I'm fed up with you.
But Kathleen, I'm lonely.
Oh, come in so. But remember these conditions and out you go if you don't keep them.
Mrs. Clark, I really think you would benefit from a stimulant. I can arrange to have a dram of whiskey propped up to you.
No, thank you, Doctor. I am a teetotaler.
Oh, in this case, Mrs. Clark, it would be medicine. I can arrange to have some sent up every day.
Thank you for your kindness, Doctor, but I do not want it or any stimulant of that kind.
Did I just hear right?
I did.
And what of your friends? I would certainly enjoy a drop of whiskey for medicinal purposes.
Very well, I'll tell him.
December 1918, I was elected to Dáil Éireann in St. Patrick's Ward, receiving 66% of the vote. I was asked to give an election address. I gave my actual address at the time. Holloway Prison in England, imprisoned by a foreign enemy. Oh, never mind, Kathleen. I'll see to it you get elected once we're out.
Her air of patronage made me feel like hitting her. I was released on February the 18th, 1919. I became very ill and was convalescing in a nursing home when Madam was released 3 weeks after me. She had been imprisoned for years and her home in Leinster Road had been sold.
Dear Kathleen, it's so good to see you. I just had to come and tell you I've gone to live in your house in Richmond Avenue. I feel so at home there, and I've managed to fill 4 rooms with my furniture. I've engaged a maid for you and I'll live there until you return. Though would you mind if I stayed on once you're back?
But that will be fine, madam. Though we quarrelled occasionally, I was very fond of her, and she had some very fine qualities.
I would like to make a bet with you.
And what would that be?
I bet that I could scrub your kitchen floor much better and quicker than the maid.
I will take your word for it, madam, but I have no desire to see you scrub my kitchen floor.
I insist. I bet you 1 shilling.
Oh, in fairness, she did do a good job. I learned after that she learned to scrub floors in Aylesbury jail, where she had been sent after the rising. She did the worst hard labour there, all the while reciting long passages of Dante's Inferno.
Nel mezzo del cammin di nostra vita mi ritrovai per una selva oscura che la diritta via era smarrita. Ai quanto a dir che bel serbadora.
With the start of the Black and Tan War, things became very difficult. My home was continually raided. One night we were all in bed when a messenger arrived from Michael Collins, saying that the house was going to be raided and that Madam had better clear out.
What, a raid now? Are you sure? Where should I go? What am I to do?
I suggest you get dressed first.
Oh, yes, good idea.
You do that, I'll figure it out. Come here, boys. Tom, Emmett, go round to Mrs. Skinner. Tell her that Madame Markovich will be around shortly and to leave the door open for her, and if you see a curfew car, jump into a hedge. Off she went, but owing to her short sight, she could not see the numbers of the house. I heard later that she kept wandering up and down the road, whispering,
Margaret! Margaret! Margaret!
until Mrs. Skinner heard her. She was safely there and the boys were back in bed asleep when the raiders reached my house. And on it went, with raids sometimes 6 times a week. But our lot persevered and we set up the first Dáil Éireann.
Kathleen, you're not going to believe it. I've been made Minister for Labour. I had to come home to tell you.
Well, congratulations. That's a first for anyone, any woman. How did you manage that?
In the end, I had to bully them. I told them I had earned the right to be a minister as well as any of the men and was equally as well fitted for it educationally and every other way. And I told them that if I was not made a minister, I would go over to the Labour Party.
Later that year, she went to a meeting in Cork and was arrested and imprisoned there.
Remember, I don't mind being in jail. And if it's better for the cause, I'm prepared to remain here. While Ireland is not free, I remain a rebel, unconverted and unconvertible. All my life, in a funny way, seems to have led up to the past year, and it's all been such a hurry, scurry of a life. Now I feel that I have done what I was born to do. The great wave has crashed up against the rock, and now all the bubbles and ripples and little me slip back into a quiet pool of the sea.
Years later, in 1941, when my term of office as Lord Mayor was finished, and even though I'd been a founder member of Fianna Fáil, I decided to end my association with them. To remain might end up in my succumbing to the natural selfishness and greed which is in most of us. Had I yielded to such temptations, I would not dare face my husband in the next world, where I hope to meet him. Nor would I dare to be untrue to the lessons learned from my parents, uncle, aunt, and grandmother. To be true to Ireland first, last, and all the time, no matter what the cost.
Settle down now, settle down. Word Witch. Opening our book of shadows, we write in the red ink of our mother tongue.
Unspooling the letters from the language of our fathers, we spell a different story.
where all the forgotten names are remembered and spoken out loud.
See how the words catch fire in our throats. See how they blaze with truth. So welcome to our second half. I'm just going to do 3 poems now. One of them accompanied by the lovely Yvonne on the barrel. The first poem is called Churched. And I don't know if anybody here knows what I mean when I'm talking about being churched, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for those that don't, this is a poem for my aunties really, Nora and Peggy, who were both churched. And it was a practice in the Catholic Church up until not that desperately long ago really, where a woman was considered unclean after she'd given birth, and she had to go along on her own and be churched by the priest. So it wasn't a celebratory thing of her having given birth, it was kind of a cleansing of the woman after giving birth. And it's called church. So this is for my aunties and all the women who were churched. My aunties were churched. Gravelly voiced women with low cut necks and wide brimmed hats and hands that kneaded dough and slapped it in its place. I'll not be churched again, she said, me auntie Nora, sitting there in her frock of brazen red. 6 children did she bear. Ah, sure, what's a little wear and tear for a woman like yourself? 2 others did she lose. Wombs and breasts and leaking milk, quick, passes the surplus, made of silk. That's what she swore she heard them say, the clerics, when they began to pray. I'll not be churched again, she said, and bow and scrape and bend my head. Sure, what on earth could they know of mornings retching o'er the sink, of the giving up and the giving in, of the booze, the fags, the drink, the giving up and the giving in, and the hormones raging through me like an ocean full of sin? I'll not be churched again, she said, and bow and scrape and bend my head. Sure, what on earth would they know of the life growing in my womb, how it moves and turns, swimming in a dark galaxy of its own, and how I nightly roam the barren landscape of the moon, and then I'm thrown up again at noon. I'll not be churched again, she said, me auntie Nora, and bow and scrape and bend my head. Sure, what in God's name would they know of bringing forth a child, of the moaning, swelling, growing wild, of the burning, opening, wide and free, and my waters breaking like the sea? I'll not be churched again, she said, me auntie Nora, sitting there in her frock of brazen red. I'd rather go to an early tomb than let them curse my blessed womb. And another one on the same kind of theme, like the Ireland that we are emerging from, I think. Better and stronger, but we are emerging from it. And this one is called Parlour Games. Brush it away, oh brush it away, hide it under the carpet today. Brush it away, oh brush it away, we're having tea in the parlour today. There's the girl, but the carpet is moving, it's writhing and screaming, but nobody sees, oh nobody hears. There's a girl under that carpet who died giving birth all alone on a bed in the mother and baby home. Brush it away, oh brush it away, hide it under the carpet today. Brush it away, oh brush it away, we're having tea in the parlour today. There's an uncle who died, who was never himself, because he wasn't allowed by the church or the state to be what to him was holy and innate. He was branded a queer, that's why he's not here. Brush it away, oh brush it away, hide it under the carpet today. Brush it away, oh brush it away, we're having tea in the parlour today. There's the spinster who spent every night of her life all alone in her bed because she was a cripple and wasn't allowed to be wed. Brush it away, oh brush it away, hide it under the carpet today. Brush it away, oh brush it away, we're having tea in the parlour today. There's the baby who died, who never was mourned. He was snatched from the arms of his mother. Alasha, you'll soon have another. Brush it away, oh brush it away, hide it under the carpet today. Brush it away, oh brush it away, because we don't want to hear their crying today. But the carpet is dissolving, it's fading away, and the voices they are demanding to be heard this day. They're dancing on their graves and they're singing out loud. They're whooping for delight and they don't give a shit. The forbidden and the damned and the locked away, and they're coming to the parlour to be heard today. The forbidden and the damned and the locked away, and they're coming to the parlour to be heard today. So the final poem I'm going to do tonight is called Rita's Miracle. Rita's Miracle is really charts the spiritual journey of an Irish woman. And there's a little bit of a chorus, which you'll probably see that you could probably join in on if you want to. So, Rita's Miracle. Rita went looking for a miracle when she was 55. Her family said she was crazy, claimed she'd lost the plot. Now they blamed it on the hot flushes, of which she was getting a lot. But Rita was determined. She said she'd had a dream, and she was looking for a magical phenomenon, a burning bush or a divided sea, a sort of mystical tsunami. Rita climbed Croagh-Patrick in December in the snow in bare feet and got blisters for her sins. She tramped around Loch Derg again in bare feet, in the rain, drinking only black tea and saying decades of the Holy Rosary. She stayed up all night, singing in Latin, high as a kite. Kyrie, hey, hey, because Rita was looking for a miracle, a magical phenomenon, a burning bush, a divided sea, a sort of mystical tsunami. That's the chorus bit, by the way. Tsunami is quite easy, okay? She flew to Lourdes on a Ryanair flight for an extra penance, jumped into the icy water, lit candles, got up really, really early for the first mass, drank the holy water, and took some home in a small, glow-in-the-dark plastic bottle in the shape of Our Lady of Lourdes. One for me. Because Rita was looking for a miracle, a magical phenomenon like a burning bush, a divided sea, a sort of mystical tsunami. Beautiful. She invoked saints and sinners in a long, and hold on, what did she invoke at all? She consulted priests and shamans, yogis and yonis. She invoked the saints in a long litany of difficult pronounced names beginning with Z. She left offerings at holy wells, muttered ancient pagan spells. She smeared her breasts with some old ash, and she even smoked some damn fine hash. But Rita was looking for a miracle, a magical phenomenon, a burning bush, a divided sea, a sort of mystical tsunami. Beautiful. She joined a naked commune in the US of A. Got up before dawn every single day. She learned to bake bread, took her guru to bed. She found a charlatan who put her in a trance. She even learned to belly dance. Because Rita was looking for a miracle, a magical phenomenon, a burning bush, a divided sea, a sort of mystical tsunami. She crossed the Gobi Desert on a foul-mouthed camel, and then she made love to this gorgeous camel. She flew to Mecca to learn the Quran, donned a veil, followed Muhammad's trail. She entered Jerusalem in an armoured van, because that's the only way left you can. Because Rita was looking for a miracle, a magical phenomenon, a burning bush, a divided sea, a sort of mystical tsunami. When I last heard of Rita, she was reciting verses from the Bhagavad Gita, wearing nothing but a red silk dress, living in a very illustrious address right under St. Peter's Dome in the holy city of Rome, teaching the Pope an Eastern mantra and the basic principles of ecstatic tantra. And I would like welcome for Catherine Ann.
They're all very hard acts to follow. So I'm going to do three pieces. The first is a song and the others are poems. And they're all inspired by a local collection which was put together by a local man here called Terry Fagan. I don't know if Terry's here. I know he was invited. But I don't think he is here tonight. But I just want to give him a shout out. Because Terry is the kind of genius behind the North Inner City Folklore Collection. And he spent decades collecting stories from people, recording people on tape recorders and all the old things as well as new things, and collecting artifacts from the tenements. And so my three pieces are about different artifacts in Terry's collection. And the first one is a messenger belt that belonged to one of the youngest women who was involved in the 1916 Rising. She was about 15 at the time, Molly O'Reilly, and her story is in the song. I was sent to learn dancing at Liberty Hall, but Jim Connolly's talk sent me reeling from my home stomping ground of the tenement sprawl. Needed more than mere towing and healing. Now they ask who's the brat who's so light on her feet, whose dancing rings round them whenever we meet. I'm Molly O'Reilly from Gardiner Street. If anyone asks who goes there, die 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 die. Jim gave me a gift of a messenger pouch on a brown leather belt with a buckle, for he saw at the sidestep that I was no slouch, and to union nor crown I'd not truckle. With the belt on my hip I could go hell for leather. God knows our poor army was cobbled together, but I gave the peelers a bit of our leather if ever they asked who goes there. Die 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 die. A soup kitchen queen by the age of 13, a firebrand with rifles to smuggle, unfurling the flag, the uncrowned harp on green, on the eve of the Easter week struggle. Then from pillar to post as the bomb smoked the air, I rang rebel notes on a ring and a prayer. I'm Molly O'Reilly, the devil may care if anyone asks who goes there. Yes, I'm Molly O'Reilly, the Summerhill hare, if anyone asks who goes there. Die 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 die. Who goes there? Put the guitar down. So the other two pieces are poems about other artifacts in the collection. And the first one is a cross that was made for a prostitute in the Monto, which was the biggest red light district in Europe at the turn of the 20th century. Some might applaud that. It's close down with the Legion of Mary anyway, so you have to decide which side you're on. Anyway, this I suppose the story behind this cross really tells me about the hypocrisy of church and state at the time in dealing with these women. So it's called Monto Cross. As she lay dying in the joiner's tenement, the priest disdained to bless her. For Margaret Carroll had once whacked a man with a poker when he wouldn't cough up. You can makeshift a cross from twigs and string, but the joiner trawled the dockyard for 2 scamplings of wood. chiseled from each a rebate, so they sat snug together. He lacquered his work with thin paint till it was quite respectable. When he got home, the daughter who had been taken from her was at her side. Margaret had no strength left, but the cross was light as air, lighter than any air in the choke of the Gloucester diamond. She clutched it with the hands she had held up for her prison photograph. It was black as a brothel poker, black as she was painted, black as the chemise a judge had once given his favourite girl. Terry has the Monte Cross in his collection, donated by Margaret's grandson, Martin Carroll, who has been in touch with me about the poem as well. And the last piece is called Sad Irons, and it's about another thing that Terry collected, which are irons from the Magdalen Laundry that was just down here on Sean McDermott Street. It was the last Magdalen Laundry to close in Ireland. It closed in 1996. It's kind of shocking to think that it was that recent. And so the irons are very old and heavy irons. They were sometimes had space in them that they could be filled with hot coals. And that was how they were used, how they ironed with them. Sometimes they were put in the fire, the smaller ones, and warmed up that way. But the women had to be very careful not to dirty the clothes with them then if they had been in the fire. So they're called sad irons not because it's a very sad story, which it is, but because sad is an old word for heavy. And when we feel sad, we feel heavy, but also the irons were very heavy for the women to carry, so they were just known as sad irons. So this is the poem. Silent here, but for the thud of the tailor's goose, the women falling between the cracks, smooth over and over. Crank the handle, feed the mangle, put through the wringer, bear down with the sad iron, no great leveller. The swollen hands that sand its metal, no lady's hands. Their fingers grasp the hot metal gingerly, eyes pricking, skin coarsening as they smooth the linen. Thank you. I'm very happy to be announcing that Annie Lanzalotto is coming back on with wonderful work.
So Mother Jones was once known as the most dangerous woman in America. It was said of her she could crook her pinky and 10,000 coal miners would walk off their jobs. She was a Cork girl. Now, in Cork City, on the hill of Shandon, with the Shandon bells going night and day, that it gets into you, two girls that changed America were born on this hill. Mary Harris, who became Mother Jones, nefarious, and Annie Moore, who was the first of 12 million immigrants to come through Ellis Island and sign the book, January 1st, I think 1892. So when I'm there in Cork City and the bells are ringing and you feel it in the chamber of you, I think of the lessons of these two women. And I take this lesson very seriously. How can I transform my own pain, misery, and suffering into action that transforms the lives of other people? Nobody did this as well as Mary Harris, AKA Mother Jones. So I'm going to tell you a couple of amazing things. And what fueled her? It wasn't El Sacre Cuore de Gesù. She said, for generations, my family fought for Ireland's freedom. Many of my folks died in the struggle. That's what fueled her. Here's what happened to her. She was born in 1837, or baptized in 1837, so born around there. And at 10 years old, with the enforced starvation in 1847, her father got her out of the country. So she left with her brothers. I don't know if her mother went, I don't know. And then she faced horrible prejudice for two things, being Irish and Catholic, in North America, Canada, and in the United States. So starvation, prejudice on two fronts. She gets an education, she marries a union worker, boom, 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 they got 4 kids, yellow fever comes. She loses all of them. 4 kids and a husband gone. How does she respond? She gets certified to become a nurse. I'm sorry if I'm yelling, it's my ethnicity, I'm sorry. I'll step back, keep the microphones away. Her response to this tragedy, she loses her husband and 4 kids. She gets certified to be a nurse because the poor people can't afford any nursing. They're all living in quarantine, and she starts going house to house. Somehow she survives. So enforced starvation, prejudice on two fronts, yellow fucking fever. Now she has to reinvent herself. She picks herself up, she goes to Chicago. She becomes a dressmaker and starts sewing clothes for the rich. Meanwhile, she sees the misery of the poor. 6 years later, the Great Fire of Chicago wipes out all the poor people, homeless. She's one of them. She loses everything. She's still only about in her 40s. So she went through all these things I don't have to name. But I mean, come on, how do you pick yourself up? So now she starts rebuilding Chicago. She goes to the Knights, some labor union her husband was involved in. She starts getting active and listening to people's speeches. She helps rebuild Chicago. And then she, at 62 years old, I'm 61, so there's still hope I could do something with my life. At 62, she becomes a union organizer and an activist. She starts organizing strikes. And for the next 30 years of her life, she lived to about 100, she organized children. They walked hundreds of miles out of the mines, out of the factories, out of the mills, to President Teddy Roosevelt's summer home. She organized women. It was like when Gandhi did the Salt March. She would walk for months and people would follow her and they would put her up. She had nowhere to live at this point. So, I don't know. Mary Harris, Cork woman, I look to you and I hope I could do some good with the misery I have. All right. Now, one of my heroes, because we're in in New York, we benefit. We are the people who left for whatever reason. And every day, that's our legacy. We wash up on shore in the Bronx and other places. All right, my friend Kelly Harrington, who I met in a monastery, true story, she was asked if she wanted a statue to her after she won the 2nd gold medal in boxing. And of course she said no. So I wrote this poem. Kelly's strong arms of love. Yes, I would love to see a statue of Kelly Harrington with her strong arms of love around Portland Row, man. Now that's a neighborhood. And her arms around Mandy with her open hands, fingers like barrel straps, ribs to ribs, man. That's what love is. Equality and pride. Yes, I would love to see all the neighbors' faces inside a mural of Kelly. Wounded faces with an inner spark of light. Worn faces lifted with awe out of cycles of addiction. For these 3 rounds. Children's faces looking up at Kelly with passion, screaming in desperation, just to be within the circle of her muscular arms, climbing on her biceps, pulling themselves up on her delts, an elder in a wheelchair, knowing he's got one fight left in him. Faces of generations of struggle, faces ripped with laughter, conquering misery. From the Strand, bombed out of the blue in World War II, to the very air littered with neglect and bursts of creation. Yes, I would love to see a statue and a mural of Kelly Harrington. Her long, strong reach of love, muscular hills of her shoulders and forearms, wrapped around Portland Row, Five Lamps, Ballybuck, Mud Island, North Circular, East Wall, Sheriff Street, over the Keys, the Liffey flowing through Kelly's veins. Kelly's arms of love wrapped around all of Dublin, all the world, all of Ireland, bringing everyone into her strong circle of love. Thank you. And now, we're blessed to have an amazing author, June Caldwell.
So, hello, fellow rebels.
Hello.
Okay, so I'm invoking our modern ability not to let misogyny wipe the floor with us. And as such, I'm going to read an abridged version of a story about a woman, a cat, and a lying, cheating prat. If you want to read a more vicious version of this story, because it is abridged, you can check it out on the Irish Times website or the Mott website. So it's called Catastrophic. Our cat has gone missing, and I know something beyond dreadful has happened to her. The love I feel is so zany and powerful and all-consuming that it's turned me finally fully enragedly mad. I haven't slept for 6 days and more nights. I'm so distraught and blood pressure fucked that I can't remember the last time I snuggled her down into a croissant shape on the duvet, or smiled back in the still empty hours when she gently placed a claw on my cheek to let me know she's capable of piercing skin, but is choosing not to. She really was, one powerful little furball of a witch. There's a bastard fox out there in the back garden right now the size of a Rottweiler. I have an annoying librarian friend who maintains the increase in starving foxes in suburban gardens in Dublin is a living metaphor for capitalism moving in to finally eat us alive without the gravy. My friend lives on X, formerly known as blah blah, and spends all her time screaming misfired emotions at other twats who spend their days screaming misfired emotions. Ping pong for the terminally ridiculous. Foxes and cats are supposed to coexist peacefully, but then again they're always the rule breakers. The good news is the risk of foxes attacking cats is very low, and there are some simple things you can do to help keep your pussy safe. Most of all, I'm really upset because my ex, who died last year, would be all over the cat now, rubbing, plumosing, bullshitting her. Oh, she was wrong about him, that none of what happened really happened. The last I heard from Harry was about 18 months ago when he flung a few sad misses my way, explaining where he was at. And I hadn't the balls to tell him to do one. Since you ask, he emailed. I didn't ask. I was drinking whiskey for breakfast and hand-jobbing my way around dating apps trying to get over him. I was dosed up with 2 hours of chemo, then sent home with tablets to be consumed 5 times per day. After it was administered by drip, I felt a wave of weirdness with pins and needles, which reminded me the time I got heat stroke in Rome in 1987 and thought God was following me down the Via del Corso with a basket of fresh ditalini. My God, like I give a shit. That man took all I had to give, end of, finito. It took me 2 years to remove his poxy aftershave from older memory and empty the garage of his Beethoven CDs and piles of football crud. We got the cat when we moved into our first home. Oh, grey with a big fluffy white chest, blue eyes, Mrs. Miggins. I named her. Thankfully, I still have that much to myself. She slept on our bed and followed us to the rooms, monitoring whatever we did in those microscopic moments of funky domestic love. I was ecstatic about all of it, really. Harry doing me over the side of the blue 80s couch when he was supposed to be writing his demanding press releases. Me making ever-increasingly gourmet food. Bread to mop it all up, garlic, butter and chili cheddar zop. Who was I kidding? The cat used to face away from us for a bit of privacy, but pin her pervy ears back to take in the bump of human noise. Me and him, crikey, so many recipe book dinners and night-long discussions at the Formica table, which countries in Europe to travel to, by what brand of train and when, always about the next big thing and the next kick and the next clandestine high, a right manic asshole. The cat knew it. She knew more than me. I hadn't read any of the signs at all. I don't imagine he took to the death rattle well, but I was spared that drama at the very end. His new girlfriend had to endure all of that, which made me feel real warm inside. I won't lie. The cat had started pissing on his shirts around the time he started seeing the new yoke. She knew he had a partner and didn't care. She wrote to me a whole weekend of abusive emails. Some feminist you are! Because, you know, I made her suffer by proxy of being his. The pissing on the shirt was Mrs. Miggin's way of saying, watch out, look what he's up to. There's another scent on here. On and on he wrote. The side effects so far are minimal. However, I cannot touch anything cold or metallic because if I do, I experience what can only be described as electric shocks. I guess the coolness reacts with something in the chemicals to produce this. So I slouch about with tea towels in my hand. Nor can I drink ice cool water, ice cubes, or any chilled drink. I'm told this will pass. For now, even water by the bed table had to be lukewarm. The line that got me was when he said he'd be kicking the booze for good. The yellow skin pallor was just exhaustion, apparently. Caused by overwork, of course. Dr. D had given him newfangled vitamin-drenched pills to combat it. 11 tablets daily, and he was doing nothing but catching up on Middlemarch after all these years. I'd bought him the first edition for his birthday when we stayed at the Anantara Grand Hotel in Amsterdam at ridiculous cost. No memory, of course, of the cat screaming blue murder at him every time he guzzled a glass of red wine. Me saying, listen to Mrs. Miggins, she's trying to warn you, something is up in there. And I pat my tummy to show him what was wrong with his. The cat was right. Harry ended up with stomach cancer and at first tried to pawn it off on my vegetarian grub. The doctor said it might well be connected to what I was eating. Fuck right off! Nothing to do with the 3 bottles of wine a night, drowning out that narcissism with giddy highs, all those teeming new ideas. Thinking of when he could fool me next to get away somewhere fabulous with that key bag. I know this alien invader could kill me, he wrote. The rationalist in me understands that, but I believe it was caught in time. Of course it was, because you're so incredibly special. You're the exception. Christ, the cat had the measure of you, prick. I am determined to pull through. I am still the devil's own. They create what's called a Trout-White procedure, named after a French surgeon, which basically fashions a new smaller stomach, and that's why the recovery period was so arduous for him. The new girlfriend had buggered off to America to take up an admin position there, and my future ex-husband wrote to me to tell me that a carbon copy of himself, straight out of the Matrix, shadowy, spectral, livid, had staggered out of his body, glared and strolled off into the bushes. That's not to say there weren't some stellar memories, like that lovely Italian restaurant in Frankfurt with the superb flat leaf parsley risotto. When he deliberately missed a football match to spend extra time with me. But the cat even stuck her paw in then. I got a phone call from my mother to say she'd gone missing after the spaying operation. We'd have to cut our trip short. The first weekend, Sarah got in touch to tell me what was going on. Mrs. Miggins didn't leave my side. Ironically, this woman Harry had replaced me with said she had endured so much in the acquiring of him, and therefore from both of us by proxy, that all she wanted now was some time for them to be happy. You need to stop bringing him about the cat, she said. I tried to explain about his drinking, that it wasn't all knee-slappy jokes at the bar, enjoying perks of his jammy job, that there was a serious side to how he wasn't handling life. She laughed me down. He'll be dead in a few short years, I told her. Even Mrs. Miggins has told him. I heard through the grapevine that he was back humping his first girlfriend from decades ago when his new soulmate was off working abroad. An addiction after all. You can be pure rubbish at the sex, but still want more of it as a type of counterfact. Mrs. Wiggins moved straight onto his side of the bed and stayed tucked into my armpit until the tears stopped, and so did the emotions. All of them. So when he first wrote telling me he found out why he was feeling so lethargic, so heavy-legged and sick, I laughed myself stupid. And Mrs. Miggins thought it was a game just for her. Rolling and rolling on the bed, the pink pad of her paws high in the air, and my God, that crazy little woman was smiling through her grey and white fur. I could put money on it. Carmen, she said. I went to see him at the hospital to see how dreadful he looked. The stench in the ward was something else. No window view out of the skyline, just a greasy sliver of an old boy's knobbly head. Harsh sheen off a green metal bed, a few chairs for the spectators. Despite health insurance, there's zero chance of my own room, he whimpered. The motherfucker could no longer eat, unable to down a thing. Noon brought hefty cabbage smells for those who could. Metallic stomach remedies, post-dinner fecal eruptions. I moved out onto the corridor for the second round of clean-ups. And staff rolled the punters on their sides without grace to wipe their arses. He was losing his mind, raving about all the lovely legs around his bed. I told him I'd heard he was screwing someone else, and someone else again, daughter of a dissident Republican. Was the new girlfriend sticking by him now? Did she think she would if she knew what he had done to her too? He chuckled a bit, then coughed so hard. His face went a weird wild blue. Nurses rushed in to do something strategic to him, I wasn't sure what. Shit, I was glad to walk out of that place, feeling properly shook. I'd spent 7 years with the twat, but I rolled away that cold spring afternoon without even a cheerio. Don't be preparing for my funeral just yet, he emailed a day later. I've got plans for treatment out of here, a second opinion, a full liver wash. I'll be right as rain by next Christmas. That line where they said to him, don't go rushing out buying bags of spinach now. The lovely face I had adored for so long, pure jaundice in the window panes. He had me in an alias in his phone to keep safe from the net girlfriend. Morphine's your only man, moving forward head first. It does, yes. Feels like my brains are full of cheese. There is no pain. Downstairs our world is richer. They're still doing the rounds, still coming in. Coffin carrier making final call. Ugh. Him and Haggis' face, twisted morals. Chasing my hairs for a ham sandwich. Good luck to him. I let you down. No one was out for their hole. We have a deep bond, don't we? Legs sinking. Time taking the piss now. Not airy, more ill feeling. You and her both. I think about you. Milky airbags. Black knee-high boots in winter, red lippy. Cat for your birthday. What was her name? Birds twerking in a low sock high. I didn't set out to lure her. Gregarious, compulsive. Did you wish this? Put your moan on me. Marauder. No fork in road. Get help. Sing. My kids will be okay, my strong kids. Off they pop. Today my nails and teeth fell out. Always washed my hands after going to the loo. I've cleaned my fair share of toilets. What did it for me? We barely knew what would happen. You reached for my hand. We strolled around Smithfield Square. You held my hand, so warm and thing. No woman had ever done that. I thought, she's a cracker. Hold on to her. At the time I meant it. Not feeling ill, feel. 1 month after communication stopped, Mrs. Miggins was vomiting around the house in small, smelly patches. She'd look at me, turn her head away again, or stick it between the curtains slit to get air. She was also drinking way too much water for my liking. Big, lengthy, lapping noises. Sleeping for a long time in the cushion on top of the chest of drawers, not the bed. When she did go out at, say, 5 a.m, she'd be back in again by 5:30, running to the window, mewing for me to go and see what she was looking at. Giant orange fox, sniffing the grass, having followed her trail intently. He looked nothing like the skittish ones that belted about the front of the house at night time, dragging bits of bags with them. This fecker was calculating nasty, after her ass for sure. Everyone kept saying, no, too rare, a cat will put up a huge fight, do damage. Foxes are only interested in birds, rabbits. But last weekend, after Harry's anniversary, Mrs. Miggles didn't come back at all. No sightings on the Residents Association app. Plenty of neighbours know her. They remarked all the time how gorgeous she was. A sinking feeling, truly. I hobbled out with leaflets for about at least 120 houses, shoving them into letterboxes, even the ones with no junk mail plastered with shiny silver. Have you seen this cat? I knocked on doors, windows. I contacted local vets. No updates of any mowed down animals or horrible accidents. I've posted on all the relevant pages online, ones with gorgeous wild faces of lost girls and boys, some ugly faces too. I don't know what else to do. Why can't them fuckers stick to rats, birds, fruits, insects, jumping off sheds and high fences like maniacs? Even a fox walking on 3 legs still moves very quickly. The trick, I suppose, is to make them feel unwelcome in your garden, humanely, and keep your cat indoors.
This is dedicated to anyone who's ever been in a march, been arrested, put your body on the line. And especially in my memory, all the ACT UP AIDS activists of the 80s. And we marched for you too. We marched for Ireland. We marched for AIDS rights. We marched for South Africa when nobody cared. I'm up, I'm ready, I'll see you in the streets. I'm up, I'm ready, I'll see you in the streets. I'm up, I'm ready, I'll see you in the streets. It's time to turn it around. They've burned our sister bodies and chopped our trees down, crushed our babies' bones right into the ground, stolen our land, blocked our water. It's time to turn it around. Feel your feet go marching. I feel your feet go marching. I feel your feet go marching. See you in the streets. Quote Mother Jones here. Mourn the dead, but fight like hell for the living. The days are long gone for simply forgiving. Bullets, kneecaps, and chokeholds we'll never forget. It's time to turn it around. Come on, feel your feet, everybody. Feel your feet go marching. I feel your feet go marching. I feel your feet go marching. See you in the streets. We gotta right this boat. We've been capsized too long. Refugees drown and need more than this song. We gotta lift each other higher every day. It's time to turn it around. We gotta live our values, build the world we dream. Hold the fuckers accountable. Divest oppressive regimes. Rescue the precious earth like the baby we love. It's time to turn it around. Come on, feel your feet. Let them hear us downstairs. If the bartender tells me he didn't hear nothing, I'm gonna be disappointed. Feel your feet go marching. I feel your feet go marching. Feel your feet go marching. Feel your feet, feel your feet, feel your feet. Feel the beat, our hearts beat. See you in the street.
All of you for coming to Annesley House, particularly the Sean Casey Festival, Joe Mooney. Big shout out to Joe Mooney, and see you at the rest. There's a few more shows left to go in the Sean Casey, the Runaway Princess. Don't miss it, okay? Thanks all for coming. See you later.